Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Net Capital team. Let's allow 1 minute for everybody to settle in. All right, let's go ahead and dive in then. So, welcome again. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jonah Tuckman with eBumps. As always, this company is actively raising capital on the Net Capital platform. I've just added a link to chat, so do not hesitate to head over there, learn a little bit more, and of course, you can invest. I want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items before we dive in. Please do use the Q&A functionality built into Zoom. I know there's also a chat feature, excuse me, but the Q&A really does make it a lot easier to keep track of all the questions, and it makes it easier to get to as many of them as possible. We do want to keep this as an interactive conversation, so please do ask your questions, and I'll try to help navigate them and organize them and get to as many of them as we can. So with all that being said, please join me in welcoming eBumps to the stage. Come on in, Jonah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're building at eBumps?
Hi, Eric. Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for joining and listening and taking interest in what we do at eBumps. At eBumps, we have built out 21.5-inch LCD screens that are seamlessly mounted to the passenger side door of vehicles. What that then allows us to do is it allows us to build out a system for the everyday driver to monetize their space, while also allowing the advertiser to run incredibly geo-targeted, time-sensitive advertisements in the out-of-home space. We found that we wanted to create a way that the everyday person can monetize the space that they hold and bring additional income into their lives. And we also found that the out-of-home advertising space was stagnant as of now. So we wanted to build a system that was able to really affect both in a positive way.
Phenomenal. And before we dig deeper into the problem and the solution that you created for the problems, why don't you tell us a little bit about the rest of the team around you?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. Yeah, so we have a great team. My co-founder Cole and I, we founded this company while we were still in college. Actually, we were full-time students, and then leaving our lectures and having phone calls with some of the biggest LCD manufacturers in the world over in Taiwan. So it had a really exciting start. And then since then, we've been able to expand our team. Cole's the head of business development with a background in management, and I'm the CEO with a background in software and in building different startups in my life. And so we expanded our team. We have a CTO who is one of the smartest people we've ever known, George Wong. Actually, when we founded the company, we were emailing all of the heads of computer science departments of the best schools in the country, and one of them responded to our email saying, I don't know how to find him. He's graduated a few years ago, but you need to find him. And he was right. George has done really remarkable things for us, as well as our CFO, Tim Lazat, who is the real veteran force of our team. He has 30 plus years of experience in the industry. He's raised I believe over $1 billion of capital in his career. He has seen multiple companies be taken to exits. And so he brings a real veteran force to our team, which is much appreciated.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think from your offering page, I gleaned that you're really targeting two big problems. What are those problems?
Yeah, so it's dual focused, both for the driver and the advertiser. For the driver and actually more broadly, the everyday person, we saw this system where people were being paid really incredible amounts just based on the following that they had and the foot traffic of views that they were seeing. So you look at Instagram influencers and you look at vloggers and different things of the sort. There were YouTubers who are no older than 10 years old, making $30 million in a year or somewhere in that ballpark. And so we wanted to create a system where we build off that idea of compensating people based on how many views they're getting, how many people are seeing them. But at the same point, we wanted it to be applicable for everybody. So now you don't need to go viral or to have these millions of followers. All you need to do is drive a car, and now you're able to monetize your space in a similar fashion to that industry. And then, once we understood that that was the idea we wanted to tackle, we did a deeper dive into the out-of-home advertising space, and we found that the industry, as of now, when you look at more of the older ways that it has been built, you look at billboards, you look at things of that sort, bus stops, and they are firstly very expensive and also very stagnant. So there's not a lot of avenues for change there. It's very difficult to track a return on your investment and things of that sort. And so we wanted to build a system where advertising campaigns could be incredibly geo-targeted based on the specifics of what an advertiser is looking for, while also providing it in a cheap fashion. We have screens that are sitting on a food truck in Times Square where our cost per mil, our CPM rate is $5. And in Times Square, you look at the larger billboards, and of course there's differing size and things of that sort, but that's going to cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 a day. So we wanted to really open this market, not just to these large corporations, but also to the everyday advertiser, someone who wants to run a campaign in the out-of-home space for $100, $200, something like that.
Yeah, no, the idea of the everyday influencer and the kind of everyday advertiser, as well as being able to kind of generate this kind of relatively passive income, is very interesting.
Yeah.
Can you tell the people a little bit about this market, this OOH, out of home marketing market? How big is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, the U.S. advertising, as we all know, is a massive industry. It's over $250 billion a year. The U.S. out-of-home industry in itself is almost $9 billion a year. And so the market is certainly there. But the really interesting thing is that we work with a company called Street Metrics, who are in charge of our collection of impressions and our data analytics of a return on investment for our clients. And what they've shared with us is, with the data that they give us, they're not just looking to capitalize on the out-of-home industry. They're looking to take dollars away from the digital industry as well. So much advertising is done in the digital space because of the return on investment that you can see, and more so the return on investment that you can track. And so with their tracking system, they're really building something out that allows out-of-home businesses to not only reach the out-of-home advertising world, but actually to reach the digital advertising world as well. And then for the driver, there are 227 million drivers in the US who are licensed. You then look at numbers like 800,000 Ubers and things like that. We have right now 25 screens in New York and had 175 drivers reach out so far, with more every day. So it certainly is a scalable business.
I love that. And before I dive deeper, people are asking about the IP protection and partnerships. Mm-hmm. But before I do that, can you dig deeper into your solution? What exactly are you providing? And then let's go into the questions coming in from the
Yeah, absolutely. So what our business model is based off of is a CPM model. So we provide a system and a medium for advertisers to reach clientele in selective markets in the out-of-home space. Based on that, the same way as you would run an ad in any setting, we base everything on impressions. So Street Metrics aids us in the ability to count the amount of impressions that each of our drivers are seeing. And so when that happens, we're then able to to correlate impression data towards CPM collection. We are paid by the advertisers for that, and then a certain portion of every impression dollar that we received goes to our drivers.
That's great. And just to make sure everybody really understands the process, coming in from the participants, can you walk us through the process and the benefits to the driver?
To the driver, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So every screen has GPS tracking within it, so that we can understand what ad was played where and at what time. And that's all data that we send over to Street Metrics. They tell us, or they provide us with that information, and thus we send it back to the advertisers so that they understand what they were paying for. And then based on the amount of impressions that the amount of impressions that a driver is seeing as they drive, a certain portion of the payments that we receive go towards them. A driver right now, if they're driving full time, can make as much as $300 a month, and we have a few drivers who are certainly making that.
That's great. And before we get to this question about IP protection, I love the defensibility piece. But before I get to defensibility, I like to better understand the competitive landscape. So can you talk about other players in the space and how you differentiate yourself from those players?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So there are a variety of different competitors. You look at car wrap companies when you really broadly look at the market of out-of-home advertising in a mobile fashion. And realistically, the car wrap companies, they're stagnant, as I'm sure everyone can understand. There's no way of changing it. You're setting yourself into a system of a week or 2 weeks of the same ad. And also it's difficult to track locations and things of that sort. And then there are companies like Halo and Firefly who their advertising practices are quite good. But the difficulty there is getting drivers to do it. And so they're the companies that put 55-inch screens bolted into the roof of a car. And so we've spoken with a variety of different rideshare drivers who share with us that it's not something that they would ever think of because they can't get into their garage anymore and they can't go and get their car washed and things of that sort. So it's very limiting of their market towards who would actually install these screens. Our screens, they have a small adhesive mount that goes on the passenger side door of a car, but the screen itself can be slipped on and slipped off seamlessly for the driver. Of course, with a small locking mechanism so that people don't run up and take them. But it's a seamless thing for our drivers. They've had no issue with it so far. And so it really broadens the market past some of our competitors towards who the drivers will actually be and what quantity of drivers we can achieve.
Yeah, I think some people would think about if you're getting paid to do something that you're already doing, it doesn't really matter so much how much that is. It's just kind of just the income where you're already
Mm-hmm.
driving around the city, you're already going from A to B. If it's an extra $300 and all I have to do is slide on a screen, unlock it, slide it back off, that seems like a pretty reasonable pursuit outside of having to fully customize your car, or it really commits that a long period of time. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
People are asking, what IP protection do you have? I think this leans to that defensibility and competitive advantage stance. And then we'll talk about partnership opportunities down the line. But any IP?
Yeah, so we have a patent pending right now for our system. It's filed both in the US, but in a broader sense, with the ability to expand to different countries, anyone who falls under the PCT cooperation. And so it is pending. We are waiting to continue that process, which will allow us a certain level of protection, given that we've already filed it.
Very cool, very cool. And then any opportunities to coordinate with Ubers and Lyfts and the large rideshare players in the market? I'm not sure exactly how much traffic that represents in kind of New York, for example, but taxi companies or rideshare companies. Any opportunity to partner with them?
Absolutely, yeah. So we see that as some of our next steps when we look towards expansion. One of the reasons for this raise, which is a bit further down the line, is once we can build out our current market in New York, we will then be expanding to further cities. And that will certainly be something that we approach as we go forward there. We had numerous taxi companies who had no less than 500 cars within their fleet approach us with interest. Really, it's just based on getting past the Taxi and Limousine Commission of New York's regulations, which, as I'm sure you could guess, is a pretty slow mover. But yeah, we've seen competitors acquire or be acquired by some of these rideshare companies. And so, yeah, that's certainly an avenue that we see could be profitable for us.
Yeah. Digging deeper into the solution that you provide, can you talk a little bit more about why 21-inch, why LCD, why are you making the screens yourselves versus purchasing and refabricating? Can you talk a little bit about the strategy behind this specific solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So to touch on the last piece, our screens are actually built by a company called AUO. They're a Taiwanese LCD manufacturer. They're often referred to as the best in the world. They started making Samsung's LCDs when Samsung stopped doing so in-house, and so they provide us with a really high level of quality. The sizing was really based on what is the biggest screen that we could put on to a car without overly dominating the driving, as well as without having to deal with certain issues like weight and such. 21 inches is a pretty standard screen size when you think about a lot of different advertising focuses. And that's more touching on the creative side. So when you have companies that are interested in running ads, they will usually have, it's called 16:9 aspect ratio already put together because it's a standard size in their industry. And so, yeah, all of those things really went into that decision that finally landed us on that size.
No, I think that's great. I think 21-inch for anybody who's games understand that's a traditional PC monitor size as well, and coordinating with an existing manufacturer makes a bunch of sense. Not going into creating your own products.
Yeah.
Continuing along here on the revenue model, can you dig deeper into your ad store? It is a non-sold and you manage that in your revenue model. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a company called ViStar Media. They're a programmatic ad firm that is able to host a lot of different programmatic and algorithmic campaigns onto our systems. And they're great. We really appreciate the work that they do. It's fantastic. One thing that we have internally that works in parallel with ViStar, it's also available through their system. It really just comes down to the preferences of the user. Is we have our own ad store that allows for different users to be able to run ads internally for cheaper metrics. So, this is mainly built for the user who wants to run some sort of a campaign outside, and the idea of, the moving billboards, but doesn't want to commit to these huge ad budgets. So, small businesses, restaurants, things of that sort. Where they can go on and they can simply spend $100 through our ad store and really put it together. And then it comes down to the idea of a compilation of micropayments where through a large number of those, you then see real revenue bumps, as adoption is found.
Yeah, the idea of the micro advertising market growing into the outdoor space, I think it's really interesting. Large sums, Instagram's advertising budget actually does, or advertising income does come from those people putting $5 or $10 onto a post to boost views on their posts. And I don't think people appreciate that micro advertising element as much as it seems like you really clearly do. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. More questions coming in. I love this. Love how interactive and engaging this is. Please do continue to use the Q&A feature. I do see some coming into chat. We'll hopefully get to those, but please do remember Q&A is the preferred method. It does make it a lot easier to track and organize and make sure we get to everything. But this coming in from chat. Is this a permanent install of your product? What kind of damage, is done to the side of the vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. No damage at all. There's a small mounting system that is placed on with an adhesive. And then when a user is ready to take the screen off, they can slip it in and out of that mounting system. We have had to take off mounting systems directly off of a car, and it has gone very easily. It is a simple 5-minute process of heating it up and then sliding it off. So yeah, no damage to the car when removed.
Yeah, I think that's important. And then can you talk a little bit more about like your successes to date? I know you said 25 screens in New York. I do believe you are in New York. I know you went to undergrad in New York. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about what the successes in terms of traction in New York, and then your scaling plan throughout the rest of the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I had mentioned earlier, we had 25 screens in New York, and without any sales team reaching out to drivers, but purely from marketing efforts, we had over 175 people sign up for these 25 screens already. And that was really in just a variety of months of marketing. From there, we have successfully mounted a variety of screens, both on mobile drivers and on the cart in Times Square, as I had mentioned earlier, which allows us to visualize really powerful data. We are seeing from our drivers anywhere from 20 to 30,000 impressions per day per screen, which is really fantastic stuff in terms of the potential of the system as a whole. From there, because the system is so new, we have begun conversations with multiple agencies and businesses and such who are interested in running test markets on the system just to understand it a bit better. And then from there, if everything goes according to plan, as we certainly hope that it would, they will go off and begin using it for their clients, which is great. And in terms of milestones for the system, we're really happy with the conversations that we're having with different ad agencies. And I think a big milestone will be when some of these agencies sign on and start beginning to use it full time for their clients.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, California rivals New York in our driving, our traffic, but definitely, the driving culture is real. And that's where we are out here. So I do look forward to seeing eBumps work its way out west. So great to hear about the screens being deployed, people clearly signing up and interested. I know you've also had some letter of intent from some potential investments. Can you talk a little bit, as much as you can without being overly divulging, but can you talk a little bit about successes in fundraising and attracting investment interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So we closed an initial pre-seed round in February that we closed for $400,000. And then once we had finished the development of our screen and we had ordered these initial 25 units, we began an initial funding round that is going to go towards at some point the purchasing of additional screens, but in the immediate future, expanding our team to include a really powerful sales team. We want industry professionals and those who are really well adapted with the world of the out-of-home advertising market. And so since opening that round, we have raised $100,000 of common stock sale, as well as once filing with Net Capital, we had, I believe it's up to somewhere around $35,000 right now in just 3 weeks. And so we've seen certainly some very nice success in our fundraising. To what I believe you're referencing is we have an investment firm in Asia who is interested in putting together an investment, and we have an LOI signed that is going through the due diligence stage and a few other things going on there. But that would essentially go towards bringing a certain portion of our screens, not our 25, but additional ones, over into Asia and building a market out there as well, alongside a really interesting drivers market that they've put together with a variety of companies that I can't quite touch on too much, but certainly a really interesting project that they have with the staking in a variety of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what I was getting to. So congratulations on that success so far. I know the market data that we discussed earlier in this webinar was purely focused on U.S. advertising spend. Of course, advertising is a global phenomenon. So the idea of tapping into the Asian markets, I think, is a really exciting opportunity, not only for your company, but for potential investors as well. So like a perfect opportunity to remind everyone that we were speaking with the CEO, Jonah Tuckman of eBumps. And as always, eBumps is actively raising capital on the Net Capital platform. You can go to netcapital.com and search eBumps, or netcapital.com/companies/eBumps. And I did add a link into the chat, but I'll also go ahead and do that one more time for everybody's convenience. So don't hesitate to head over there, learn more, and of course, you can invest. That is about our halfway mark. Love to transition into one more other success that you have displayed on your offering page, and that is deploying 20 plus additional screens to drivers around New York City who have already signed up and been approved. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so as I had said, we had a variety of drivers who had signed up. And what that really gives us the really nice ability to do is be a bit picky with this initial release. So we're able to really choose the best drivers at the moment, those who are doing the most driving in the highest foot traffic spaces. And so, yeah, in the upcoming weeks, we will be continuing to roll out additional screens and just see our fleet of screens grow. Actually, we have a company that we are beginning to work with who both or who has a fleet of screens themselves and also has an independent business that they run where they find themselves as really the fillers of offices with everything they need. So whether it be cold brew and snacks or staples and highlighters, they drive around the city all day and fulfill orders for their clients. And so they are coming on to both be doing advertising on the system as well as getting a few screens for these drivers, which we think will prove to be a really great partnership.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think the versatility of the ads is one of the most compelling components. The idea that maybe you're advertising coffee in the morning and wine in the evening, but that kind of ability to be dynamic in your advertising, I think is a really important piece of the puzzle. I think another piece really is that mobile versus stationary piece. And so you were talking about not only deploying the screens on the cars, but also deploying them on carts. That could be on restaurants. These could be fixed objects. Can you talk about how the breakdown is now between mobile and stationary and how you see that changing over time?
Yeah, so right now we have 3 screens on a food truck in Times Square. We see great data from that in terms of impression count. It really is in some of the best real estate in the world, right on 46th and Broadway. So certainly a really valuable place to have any advertising medium. And so realistically, we have others in Times Square who have reached out to us with interest for a similar thing. We just need to understand a bit more from our advertisers where they find the most value. And so, that's just something that comes with discovery and with further questions that they'll be sharing with us as we continue to grow.
Absolutely. And then how does the screen or how does your software know how many people are seeing those ads? Is it based off of just like general traffic, or is it the actual traffic at that time? Share a little more about that.
Yeah, so that's all run through a third-party auditor called Street Metrics. They see GPS data that we provide to them from essentially the routes that the screens were driving and what ad was playing at what time. And they provide us with really detailed impression counts that take in a variety of different data sources to compile that. Street Metrics is the most trusted company in this industry for that. where every programmatic ad company that we had spoken to insisted that we use them. They do fantastic work. And so their impression counts that we receive are incredibly accurate, we believe.
No, yeah, that makes sense. That's a well-known third party. And then in terms of companies advertising their own products versus advertising other people's products and gaining revenue from that, what does the breakdown look like from that? Or do people tend to be, I know that looked like the street vendor was marketing largely their own products that they're serving, but I imagine that people that are driving around might be different. Any breakdown on that?
Yeah, so funny enough, every driver that we've had so far has mentioned to us that they have something in their own lives that they'd like to advertise for, and so it's something that we allow for, and not even allow for, but we support it. And so when we put our screens on John's hot dog, one of his chief concerns was that he wouldn't be able to allow people to understand what his cart was, which, that can be argued. It's a pretty obvious hot dog cart, but we put together a variety of different imaging and content that allows for some really great marketing for himself as people walk by. So yeah, for a lot of our drivers, it's not just the monetization and things of that sort, but it's the ability to have this advertising platform on your car and really be in charge of where it goes and things of that sort.
Yeah, that's great. I do like the idea that people are being thoughtful about promoting the products that they actually care about, marketing the products that they actually use, and I think that is powerful. For the mobile screens, you have some pretty interesting data on your offering page from the Brookings Institution about the number of drivers, number of cars on the road in the United States right now. Can you share a little bit more insight into that? And then do you have any idea of how that might be trending over time? There was some data about increases in people pursuing and owning cars and driving more. Can you tell the people about roughly how many cars are on the road in the United States?
Yeah, so right now there are 227 million licensed drivers in the US. And really there's just fascinating data that comes out about similar topics all the time. I know that Apple actually releases data from their IMAP system that is indicative of how people are getting around. So simply enough, if someone opens up IMAPs and clicks walking, then they're walking, and similar towards rideshare and driving and everything of the sort, down to public transportation. And one of the things that they've seen trending as things begin to open, during COVID and everything that has resulted from it, is that they're seeing a real spike, especially in New York City right now, of people who are walking. And so the great thing about that, and the great thing of the current situation, although it's not a great situation, is that people are outside, and our system is built for these exact situations where people sit out over coffee, over brunch, and they are sitting outside, or they're walking somewhere and they can see a screen going by. And so although COVID is certainly a really negative thing, it has brought a shift in the market that has benefited us.
Yeah, so there's some silver linings to the global pandemic. One of them, actually, it's a really good topic that I'd love to dig deeper into. Can you tell the participants a little bit more about how the pandemic has affected the industry as a whole and OOH? And then how do you view the recovery from the pandemic, which looks like it, hopefully, I don't want to jinx anything, but looks like we're slowly starting to work towards reopening. How do you imagine that will impact?
Yeah. So we've certainly spoken to companies who had been advertising out of home before the pandemic, and simply their marketing budgets just dwindled, based on lost revenues and things of that sort. And so there have been negative aspects in terms of the business side, certainly. But what we are expecting, and what a lot of people in the industry are expecting, is that as things hopefully get back to normal, there will be an influx of advertisers wanting to tell the world that they're back open, tell the world that things are normal, and essentially really just begin to advertise themselves, not just in Facebook ads, because that's where people have been seeing them cooped up in their home, but actually get back outdoors and share it. And so it's something that we're hoping continues in that fashion.
No, that adds up to me. So I do like to start concluding our conversations about like a closing remarks, and generally it's around why now is a great time to join the eBumps family as an investor. But I just want to give you a heads up on that. We still have a couple more minutes of programming, and I do want to encourage the participants to continue to ask questions. We do want to keep this as engaging as possible, so don't hesitate. And of course, you can continue any questions after this webinar through the Q&A functionality built into the offering page. But you've had a little bit of press recently through Yahoo Finance and Seeking Alpha. What was it about? What did those institutions find about your unique solution? What did they end up writing about in those releases?
They were really writing about a new system coming to New York. So I think their focus was both for the advertiser, as it certainly brings something new to them, but also for the general New Yorker who now has the ability to, as we've been saying throughout the entirety of this, to monetize their space. So I think that what Yahoo Finance and Seeking Alpha and a variety more were interested in is just the fact that we've built something new, and that something new is coming to New York and is now here, and people have the ability to use and to profit off of.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. We talked a lot about the benefit to the driver or to the person who is mounting the screen somewhere, whether that's mobile or stationary. Can we talk deeper into the benefit to the advertiser, and how are you getting in front of these smaller advertising groups? I mean, there are massive conglomerates that spend billions of dollars on ads. How are you mobilizing the smaller spender to write those microtransactions to advertise through eBumps?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we build for the advertiser is the ability to be physically in front of someone, as has always been the draw of out-of-home advertising, but in this fashion to do it in a really selective and targeted way. So through the firm ViStar Media, we have the ability to run campaigns that are not just dictated by zip code, which we have clients who have given us and we've been able to do. But similarly through ViStar, we're able to be incredibly specific in terms of the demographic that someone is trying to release. So we understand that there's the ability to run campaigns within a few blocks of all Starbuckses, and to quote unquote craft beer drinkers and such. And so based on the amount of data that ViStar has been able to put together, we present advertisers with really detailed and really, really cool ways that they can move forward with their advertising. And then to this smaller company, that's really done through a variety of different marketing practices, whether they be email lists or general marketing and advertising. We're just trying to get this in front of them where they understand that this is something they can do, and it's something that can benefit their company. And of course, that's something that is scalable. It starts slow, and then when it begins, it really takes off with people telling others and seeing it more. And so that's just what we're building the grounding for right now.
Absolutely, and this will probably be the last question, unless some more trickle in. But we talked about the partnership with Street Metrics and how incredibly important that is for your data and AUO in terms of creating those beautiful screens. Can you talk a little bit about your partnership with Tech Global and Verizon?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Verizon, I'll begin with, they had originally provided the cellular networks for our for our screens, but actually we drifted away and we found a company called Hologram, which rather than always being on the Verizon network, what Hologram does is they have algorithms that decide what the strongest connection is at a certain time between all of the major competitors, and link us to that network, which is really, really cool stuff. And actually why we ended up making that shift. But with Tech Global, they have done such really, really great work for us. They essentially take the screens that AUO makes, and they're shipped over to Tech Global, where they build the mounting system and the casing of the screen. It's really complex stuff that they do. They have done absolutely amazing work. They work with other companies as well, like 3M and Motorola and Delta. So they're well known in the industry, certainly, which certainly speaks to the quality of the screens. And so, yeah, we really appreciate the partnerships that we make. You know, we certainly could not have come to this point without them. And so, you know, we feel like we've made some really good partnerships that have positioned us well in this industry.
Absolutely, and the Tech Global component with the relationships with 3M. You know, obviously, when you think about mounting anything, I think 3M is kind of the company of mine in terms of their capability to do that. You know, curious, is it the screen itself that's waterproof and outdoors, or is it once it's in the mount that allows it to be able to be weatherproof?
It's both. Yeah, it's both. Our engineers, when they were testing it, you know, because we get the question all the time about how do we know it's not going to fall off? How do we know it's weatherproof? Things of that sort. Our engineers put it in a room, and you know, a testing facility, and they cranked the heat up to a couple hundred degrees. They threw every piece of the elements that you could at it. They shook it. They stood on top of it and jumped on top. They tested it as well as one could, and so you know, we're incredibly trusting of them that after all the testing that they've done, this is a system that is well equipped to weather the senses.
Yeah, I saw the picture of the car and weathering those New York winters, and so you know, that I imagine that's critically important for potential investors to know. Great, thank you so much for that, Jonah. As I mentioned earlier, this is the perfect time to transition into closing remarks, and then I'll do a little bit of kind of closing, you know, my own personal housekeeping, ending remarks, and then we can wrap up this programming. So, Jonah, tell us, why is now the perfect time to go to nextcapital.com and invest in eBumps?
Yeah, absolutely. You hear so much in the technology world, in the startup world, about ground level and things of that sort. And realistically, it's a really exciting time to be a part of this team, because we've spent the last year building everything and making these really important decisions about the growth of the company that have brought us to the exact point that we wanted to be in, where we are releasing our screens, where we have a wide variety of interest, and where, you know, we are having conversations with really important advertisers and such to begin advertising on this system. And so really it's the culmination of the partnerships and all of the development that's gone into it that is allowing us for our full release. And so in terms of why now, realistically, because as the system grows, it's going to grow exponentially. When one advertiser comes on, the others we expect will come to it as they see the success that is being shown. And so realistically, we work towards, you know, getting that initial one, and once it happens, we think there will be really exciting growth from there.
Awesome, Jonah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. That's Jonah Tuckman, CEO of eBumps. As always, eBumps is actively raising capital on the Net Capital platform. You can go to netcapital.com and search eBumps, or netcapital.com/companies/eBumps. Also, as always, this webinar has been recorded and will be uploaded to the Net Capital YouTube channel. I'm adding a link to that right now into the chat. There's also previous recordings from webinars as well as demo days. So don't hesitate to head on over to the YouTube channel, catch any of this webinar that you might have missed, or circle back for anything that you didn't quite understand. And you can learn more on the Net Capital website or the Net Capital YouTube page. So with all that being said, I want to thank all the participants for joining me. Thank you for your fantastic and thoughtful questions. I want to thank Jonah for joining me as well and allowing me to ask you some of the questions that the investors want to know. So thanks, everybody, and thank you so much, Jonah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye.